Hello, so this is my final project on tourist romance films. So, Hollywood's overseas operations were typically believed to be forcing American values and cultures onto various markets internationally. And so that Hollywood typically did this by depicting Europeans as reluctant, but ultimately accepting of outside cultures. Um, but so this kind of idea of Americanization fails to accept the fact that audiences attend movies by choice rather than out of necessity. So that these European audiences are choosing to go consume this media, this Hollywood media. So due to an increased demand in and high success rate in international markets, Hollywood began to target these markets through carefully curated processes and how in distributing movies that had historical success in that country. And so an example of this would be tourist romance films, which saw high population in these countries during the 90s. So during the 1990s, Hollywood saw an influx of romantic comedies, which involved American women fleeing to Europe and finding love and communion abroad. So this complicated Americanization because Americans often found new and more meaningful lives abroad, escaping their lives here in America. So this kind of dynamic invited Americans and individuals to self-reflect and to examine the dynamic between their life at home and life abroad in Europe. And so yeah, these films typically or they often depicted women as having more authentic experiences abroad in Europe and often coming to realizations that life in America is not that all that they desire. So Diane Negra in 2001 outlined four ways in which tourist romance films depicted major issues American women were facing during the 90s. So the first is a sense of rootlessness due to economic migration of the 90s. The second is feeling alienated or without a sense of community or people around you to support you. The third is pressure over career and family choices, whether to pursue a career or to pursue a family, and how to choose and battle kind of between choosing career or family life. And the fourth is insecurity over images, body issues, and rocky relationships with food during the 90s. So Negra's model offers very direct reasoning and explorations she believes were the main themes and motivations for these four female protagonists of these films. However, her criteria is more applicable when we examine it on more of a broad sense, which is pretty important when we look at my film, Midsummer. So Midsummer is a horror drama film directed by Ari Aster and produced by A24 in 2018. The film follows Danny and Christian, who are a young couple as they journey through the Swedish festival of Midsummer. So Danny and Christian are joined by Christian's classmates who are also pursuing graduate degrees in anthropology, as Christian is. So when we're first introduced to Christian, we understand that he plans to end the long-standing relationship between himself and Danny, and he plans to do it sometime before the group leaves for Sweden. So Christian is too afraid, and he doesn't know how or when to approach the situation. Due to concerns or yeah that Danny was having, and her trouble kept sending her mentally ill sister kept sending cryptic messages to her, cryptic emails to her, which kind of really was freaking Danny out, and Christian just didn't have know how to approach or when to approach the situation. So Danny's home life and her relationship with Christian is further affected and further made more difficult due to the murder-suicide that was conducted by Danny's sister, which also took her parents. So at this point, Christian feels trapped in an unhappy, unhealthy relationship. He's not really giving Danny any love, attention that she needs during her time of grief. He's really kind of just ignoring her feelings, not validating how she's feeling, even though she's going through all this pain. He doesn't really connect with her and doesn't really make any attempts to connect with her. So, believing to gain time away from Danny and to distance himself from the relationship, because he hopes that this relationship just kind of boils its way out. Christian doesn't tell Danny about their trip to Sweden that they'd been planning for months and months, until she finds out just 2 weeks before they leave. And at that point, Christian feels so guilty that he invites Danny, but not because he wants her to go, just because he feels bad about not inviting her in the situation that she's in. So, due to the circumstances and obviously the recent events in Danny's life, she believed it was good. She believed it to be good to get away for a while. I mean, she can rekindle her relationship with Christian, and she can get away and kind of just put all the tragedy from home behind her. And so, although she believed it to be beneficial to the relationship with Christian, um, he didn't put the same effort in as she did, and he actually kind of becomes more distant and turns his attention to a local of the community. But so yeah, like I said, Christian becomes more distant. He's not really able to communicate effectively with Danny, who was clearly hurt, obviously. And so Christian's friend, his classmate, and one of the local Swedish people, who actually invited them on the journey. The whole reason that they're there is because of Pele, um, who begins to care for Danny. He checks in on her when she's visibly upset, offers ways for her to be more part of the community, and just kind of gives her various different ways to get her mind off and escape the pain and troubles that she was living back home. So, although they'd been dating for almost 4 years, Christian forgets Danny's birthday. However, Pele, Christian's friend and Swedish local, did not. And he gave her a card which was signed by all the members of the community. I mean, it's at this point where we can see that Danny is becoming frustrated, and she herself becomes more distant from her cold hearted boyfriend, Christian, who had been putting no effort in and hadn't really been caring for her at all to this point. And so Paley introduces Danny to the May Queen tradition, which is a long celebrated tradition of the community, and it introduces a new member and a new queen of the community each year, each May. So Danny's given the opportunity to participate in the competition with the rest of the locals. It's all females, but with all the rest of the local females. And it's at this point where we could see she's happy for the first time. And although she's initially worried about Christian, who is watching from the side, Danny quickly gets consumed by the joy and the communion that she feels when she's participating in this. And she kind of just forgets Christian, puts him off to the side almost, in which he goes and does his own mischievous things. So, following Christian's betrayal of Danny at the Mayflower celebration, or the May Queen celebration, rather, um, Danny's given the opportunity to either sacrifice Christian or a random member of the community. So at this point, Danny's filled with anger and disappointment, and she chooses Christian, cementing herself as a permanent member of the community. So Midsummer fits into Negra's model of tourist romance films, through the criteria of alienation and desire for communion. So back home, Danny had lost all her family. She'd been experiencing a relationship with Christian who was fleeting. He wasn't putting in the effort that she was. She was unable to feel like she was part of a family, and that she was experiencing all this hardship and all these emotions all on her own, and she wasn't able to understand and cope with all the pain by herself. Um, so she goes to Sweden, and although she witnesses this community commit all these violent violent acts, and she can't really get away from this feeling of needing to have a community, that she begins to feel that she's at home with these people. That they were able to understand, and they were also able to literally feel the same pain that she was feeling, which was something that she couldn't have back home, because she didn't have a family and she didn't have a boyfriend who was able to experience that and feel those same emotions that she gained when she became part of this community in Sweden. Yeah, so thank you. I hope you have a good rest of the summer, and I hope all is well with you. Thank you.